Well, the big news is that Beaky is in the Big Apple. You flew there yesterday. How are you, Nas? And where are you, first of all? You've opted not to stay downtown. I cannot believe it. New York, one of the greatest cities in the world. You have the option of staying right in Brooklyn or going out to Long Island where these games are, and you've opted to go for the boring place.
Well, firstly, do not call me Beaky again. I saw you promote this podcast by calling me Beaky on Twitter the other day. Secondly, some of us are actually this is a World Cup. It's not just a cup that's been held in Barbados. So we are actually traveling around doing a variety of fixtures. I've done Dallas, Barbados. I'm now in New York. I got in at midnight. It's now 6 a.m. That's why I'm staying in Long Island. A, because it's close to the ground. And B, because it's close to the airport. Your backside hasn't moved from that beach in Barbados. Your next gig's like a week Thursday in Antigua. I mean, it is ridiculous. I am in New York. I am doing what game today? South Africa, Bangladesh in about 4 hours' time, while you're sipping pina coladas on Accra Beach.
I can't believe you haven't opted to stay in town. I mean, I've spoken to Pete Lawler, my great mate from the Australian. He's having the absolute time of his life. Loves New York, one of the great cities. But no, you're out in the burbs.
I did New York the other month, didn't I, for Secrets of Success. I've done New York. I want to do a bit of Long Island. It looked nice last night at midnight, driving in. It looked lovely, to be honest. So, I'm looking forward to it.
So there's lots happened since we did our last podcast. If you remember, our last podcast was on the eve of the England-Scotland game. So that's quite a long time ago. There've been, well, lots of interesting results, actually. I mean, particularly USA turning over Pakistan, which has to go down as, well, if not the greatest shock in T20 World Cup history, then one of, along with Netherlands beating England at Lords. What was that, 2007 or 2009. Afghanistan absolutely thumped New Zealand. They're going to be a real threat, I think, on those pitches in Guyana and Trinidad, where they play the majority of their games. That'll really bring their spinners into play. And of course, with the quality of batters they've got now, if they get runs, they're going to be a real threat. Canada beat Ireland, and then it was all set up for the big weekend, really, which was obviously England against Australia, and then the big one yesterday, Pakistan and India. So should we talk a little bit about the games at the weekend? Where do you want to start, with the England game or the India-Pakistan game?
I'll ask you about the India-Pakistan. Let's do that second. Let's do it chronologically, because I was on that flight yesterday, so I didn't catch much of it. There was a load of people huddled round a phone trying to watch the India-Pakistan game, and I was listening to a bit of it. Let's start with England-Australia. What did you make of it?
Well, I thought Australia were hugely impressive. They're your pick, aren't they, for the tournament, actually? And you may well, as usual, prove to be of sound mind. I thought they looked really, really clinical. I was very impressed with their bowlers, sizing up conditions, taking pace off the ball. Zampa, hugely important. But the way that Hazelwood and Cummins in particular have made themselves into such good T20 bowlers. You know, for a while, you could probably have argued a few years ago they were much stronger, longer format bowlers than the shortest format, but they stand tall now in that. And then the way that the batters targeted that short side in the opening power play, got off to an absolute flyer. I have to say, I thought some of England's strategy was odd. Neither of us, I think, can lay claim to talking in hindsight, because the day before the game, I think both of us said we would have played Reece Topley, the left armour. They opted not to. They went with the pace of Jordan and Wood. So Topley would come in for one of those. But I felt that, you know, when you look at the success of the left armers in the tournament so far, particularly at that ground with a strong cross breeze, Trumpelman's got wickets there, Curry got wickets there, but elsewhere in the tournament, you know, Fazal Haq Farooqi for Afghanistan. Left armers are doing well. The ball is swinging up front. They're a threat. But then obviously Topley offers those cutters that he can bowl as well from quite a tall, high action compared to Wood, who's skiddier. So I felt that he probably should have played. And then I did feel it was an odd decision to give Will Jacks the second over. I mean, people who make these decisions are not fools, and there's obviously reasons behind it. Australia had two left-handers there, Head and Warner. Jacks had got Head, I think, out in the IPL, hadn't he, earlier? But I felt it was really high risk because of that short side, and Jacks being very inexperienced in terms of T20 international bowling, and then the way that he bowls, which is quite slow and floaty. I felt that was a very high risk strategy. I know Josh Butler afterwards said that it was an instinctive call, but I think it was an instinctive call based on the fact that it was in their mind, because you're not just going to throw Jacks the ball without giving him any warning. So I thought that was odd and costly. What did you think?
Yeah, I think I was a little bit more perplexed as the pace on options. Yeah, it was a gut feel or whatever. They went with Will Jacks. It didn't pay off. We've all made those decisions. There were marginal decisions through. I would have definitely played Topley. I just think I like the left arm option. He has a good record against left-handers. They have Head and Warner. There's the cross breeze you mentioned. He will swing it away from the left-handers. That's why he's got a good record. And more importantly, the pace off. Now, we put up a graphic at one stage on the broadcast that pace on was going at 160 and pace off was going at run a ball. And before the tournament, everyone was saying in those pitches out there, you're going to need to bowl cutters. You're going to bowl it into the surface, and Topley at his height does that brilliantly. So they leave him out. Fine, marginal call if you'd like. But then when they actually play the game, I'm watching and thinking, when are they going to go to their pace-off options? After the first 2 overs of spin, the second one gets belted. Then that fourth over, they go to Wood with pace on. And Warner and Head are such smart cricketers. They realise that eventually England are going to crack on that we need to bowl a lot of cutters on here. And Wood just bowled pace, and he went for 22, I think, didn't he?
Same as Will.
And it didn't take until that Archer over, when Archer finally dismissed Warner, he came on, and the whole over, I think 5 out of the 6, he rolled his fingers down the side of the ball. And that is when England suddenly clicked that we have to take pace off. So there were sort of calls that, when you add them up, I think led to the opposition getting 200. You could argue about the toss on a very dry pitch, and the groundsman was worried about it. We were in the middle. You did the toss. I was doing a pitch report. It was a very hot day, and that wind was blowing, which was drying it up as we speak. Generally, in those conditions, I know with the short boundary, it's difficult to protect, but you'd probably bat first, get a score. You would play a pace-off option or a taller bowler bowling it into the surface. You may not go an inexperienced off-spinner in your second over. So when you start adding all these decisions that could have gone a different way up, then you see how they get 201 on there. For me, unless Butler and their top order did something remarkable, 201 for me on that pitch was a lot. And a lot of people have focused actually on the batting after the power play of England. So how much Bairstow struggled, how much the lower order struggled, Brooks struggled. Actually, that for me, as you say, Australia, Cummins, Hazelwood, Zampa, pace off, very smart. And that's where England realised, crikey, this is now really tough. That was the toughest phase of batting at 3, 4, 5, 6 in that middle order. It was getting very tough, and the damage had been done earlier in the day.
Yeah, I often think that 3 and 4 actually are peculiarly difficult positions in T20, because it's set, isn't it, for the openers? You just got to go out and take advantage of that power play, and they'll do it in their different ways. Salt generally tries to get a bit of a flyer and give Butler a bit more time, but that is always set for the openers. The situation never changes, does it, unless you're playing on a real stinker of a pitch. And that's true of the finishers as well. Somebody like Iftikhar for Pakistan, or the Tim David, the finishers, their situation never changes. They just come in, know they've got to belt it in the last 2 or 3 overs. That 3-4, when you come in just maybe after the power play, but before you get to the final phase of the innings, actually asks a lot of the batters, I think, and asks them to be adaptable and show a lot of kind of adaptability. And you made the point about some of the teams actually of England are one that the top four would all probably like to bat in the first two. Now Bairstow's done it certainly more. Jacks generally opens for Surrey. Pakistan, who we'll come to in a bit, they've got top four who'd all like to bat in the top two. I guess in T20 everybody would like to bat in the top two because it's obvious, field restrictions and pace usually on and the ball is new, blah blah blah. But I think it's a more demanding role in T20 3-4 sometimes.
What about the reaction? I mean, people are almost writing off England. We will come on to looking ahead to the rest of the tournament, but they had a rain-affected game against Scotland, and they have lost to, a side that's going round serial winners, winning absolutely everything in cricket, and as I had them as favourites, as one of the favourites of the tournament. Should they be? It's a nature of this tournament that you're not allowed any slip-ups, so you can't have many. But B, is it as doom and gloom for England as people are making out? That Scotland result against Oman didn't help yesterday.
No, well, yeah, you look at the table, England's net run rate is significantly worse than Scotland's, isn't it? I think it's still foolish to completely write off England. And I think the doom and gloom is not just on the back of the defeat against Australia and the washout against Scotland. There's the hangover from the 50-over tournament in India, where everything went wrong for England, and where Matthew Mott and Josh Buttler struggled to drag them out of this spiral of defeat and doom and gloom. And that there's that hangover still. And in fact, that's what's irritated Josh Buttler a bit, because he gets asked questions about the India competition, which in England have tried to put to bed. But obviously, there's that context there for people who talk and write about the game. And so he's appeared a little bit kind of terse with his answers towards that. But I wouldn't read too much into that. Again, the comparison was made between the very chilled and relaxed looking Mitch Marsh and Josh Buttler. But, I was somebody who didn't like particularly doing press conferences. I don't think you can ever win in that game. But just because you get a bit grumpy in a press conference, I don't necessarily think that necessarily translates to how you are in and around the team. I think it would be England are still in the competition. They're going to have to win and win well twice. It would be foolish to completely write them off, I think.
Yeah, the two things I hope, one thing I hope they do is don't react and turn up to Antigua and play a side that they should have played in Barbados and play Topley, maybe read the conditions in Antigua. And also with Oman and Namibia, they could well. I know Oman, I did something with Niall O'Brien before the tournament, and he felt Oman with some extra pace may struggle because they don't see any of that. So actually against Oman and maybe Namibia as well, you might want to go with Wood, Archer, Jordan, because your net run rate situation, you do want to bowl them out, or however about you want to go about it. You want to win and win well. So that may be an option. But the pitch, have a look at that and read conditions like historically you do. The only thing that concerns me is that Scotland's last game against Australia is after England. So if England win their two games well and don't get ahead of net run rate, then Scotland will know that A, they have to win, obviously, but B, they will also know if they lose what the margin needs to be. So it is tricky for England.
I was going to ask that question. Do you think that's right? Do you think that the final group games should be played at different times? Because
it's such a chaotic schedule. Anyway,
oh yeah, no, one has sympathy for them. But do you remember? I was thinking way back. It was the World Cup that you played in. I missed actually with a back issue, the 1999 World Cup. Do you remember what happened there? Is that Australia went on a go slow, didn't they, at Old Trafford? I looked it up briefly yesterday. That in those days, the way it was worked out was that you carried points forward from the group stage to what was then the Super Sixes. And from memory, Australia had been beaten by New Zealand in the group stage. So they didn't want New Zealand to go through to the second stage. And therefore, they went on a bit of a go slow, beating West Indies, I think, at Old Trafford. They beat them. They weren't, not winning, but they kind of slowed the win down
That's what I was doing.
Run
That's
rate.
what I was doing against Kenya in that game.
But that cost us the World Cup.
Oh yeah, that's it. Sorry.
The difference was you were playing for your average there.
You're not suggesting that Australia, the mighty Australia, might have some shenanigans in the hope of knocking England out the World Cup after everything that happened at Lord's and all the kerfuffle that's still going on in the background.
Not suggesting that.
They will give England the moral victory. Finally, they will get it.
But you're right. The fact, I think I looked at the times of the game. So England playing Namibia at 1 o'clock. Australia and Scotland are playing on the same day, but at 8:30 that evening. So they will. The net run rate will become clear to the two teams that are playing the final game of the group stage.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating.
Just remind me, in 1999, what happened with your go slow?
That's just how I batted. I went slow all the time. There was no sudden decision to go slow. That's how I played. Sorry for being the leading run getter in that World Cup for England. I apologise. The strike rate might have been 42 or something in the whole World Cup, but I think me and Thorpe or whatever, we stumbled over the line against Kenya, and then by the end, everyone was talking about net run rate, and I was keeping my head down, to be honest. So, what about the second game of the weekend? I was taking that because I work and travel in a World Cup. I was taking that flight from Barbados, delayed for an hour and a half as well in Barbados. So what did you make of that game? When I got out the cab, the taxi man had it on in the radio, and Pakistan were ahead. They needed a runner ball. Yeah. And then I was following it on my phone, and the boundaries just dried up. What happened?
They did. Well, first of all, the game was a pretty good game. You know, the pitch played safely and okay. It was a bit too paced, not a great pitch, but it was fine. So I was kind of pleased that they got an event, you know, the amount of work that has gone into making this stadium. It felt to me like there was a lot riding on the game because, as you said, Dallas has gone pretty well, hasn't it? You did that opening game in Dallas. The games in Dallas have been well supported, well attended. The pitches have been very decent there. They've had some good games. There's been a little bit of grumbling about the New York side of it, hasn't there? Because the ICC issued a press release saying, you know, the pitches are not playing as they would like. There were some concerns there. The scores had been low. It's a 35,000 seater stadium, and some of the other games I think it only had, you know, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. So it not looked a great spectacle. And one or two teams had grumbled about the logistics of traveling from, you know, the city out to Long Island. So it felt like, given the amount of effort and spend that had gone into this leg of the tournament in New York for obvious reasons, it felt there was a lot riding on the game to me. And that if it had been a bit of a disaster, it would have been a real problem. You know, if the pitch had been unsafe or something like that, you know, people hadn't turned up, whatever, they're always going to turn up for this game, clearly. So I think it was a good event, you know, that it looked good, 35,000 there, decent, tense game, not a high scoring, high octane game, but quite tense. So first of all, I think that was a tick. It was a good game. And yeah, I mean, low score, obviously chasing, and then Bumrah, what a bowler. I mean, you know, when you look at his performance there, he's nicked off Babar Azam in his opening spell, and you think in a low-scoring game on a slightly tricky two-pace pitch, the classy player is the really important wicket, because somebody like Babar could just bat through where there's not a massive demand on his run rate. The scoring rate, he can bat through and win that game for Pakistan. So he's chipped him out first of all. And then Pakistan are going quite well. And he brings Bumrah back in the 15th over. Rizwan's going okay. Gets Rizwan out first ball. Then he bowls the 19th, which is the critical over. They need 21 off 2. He's over him. The 19th over goes for 3, game done. And he gets Iftikhar, the key man. So 3 for 14 from 4, picking up 2 vital wickets, just kind of clamping the game down at a critical stage. He really is a wonderful bowler across formats, isn't
Yeah,
he?
and I thought that's where Pakistan weren't smart, really. Like I say, I was
You
following
think go harder before Bumrah comes back, because you know he's got.
Yeah, I was following on my phone, and it's it was 21 off 2, and someone went, "Oh, this could get tight," and I was like, "No, Bumrah's bowling one of those two."
Yeah. Yeah.
So history tells you that he is going to be world class at any phase. That's why we always talk about him, the multi-phase bowler, and that's exactly what he was yesterday. But also, when you're chasing, you have to factor in that last over off Bumrah, and you can't have it 21 off 2. Because you know it's then going to be 18 off the last, or even 15 off the last. You can't be plodding along at run a ball and then expect to get your tail enders to get 18 off the last. That's what used to wind some of our tail enders up. Goff and people like that. You've all gone at a run a ball. We go in. We now need 18 off the last over, and it's our fault. So I don't. And I think Gary Kirsten has mentioned that. He said for 35 out of the 40 overs, we were very good yesterday. It is that 15th to the 20th over. I think Fakhar Zaman was also a key wicket, because if he'd batted for another 10 balls, 2 more boundaries, they win. I mean, they were 1 boundary away from a super over. And in fact, Nazim came in and hit a couple of boundaries in that last over. It was just that 15 to 19. You have to, someone in the middle has to say, Bumrah's got to bowl that 19th. We have got to get it to 10 off 2. Or 15 off 2, not 21 off 2. Game's done. When it's 21 off 2 and Bumrah's got one left, it's done, because he is just the best multi-format bowler in the world at the moment. He is unbelievably talented. And Rohit's captaincy, there's quite a lot of plaudits about how Rohit. I enjoy that. I used to enjoy that as a captain. If you got low scorers, we often did, trying to defend low scores. So he must have got everything pretty much spot on to defend that target.
Yeah, I think that just he's calm, isn't he? Held his nerve. You're trying to defend 120. I think it's the lowest score that India have defended in a T20 game. I mean, I think you would think that if our batters struggle to crack on this surface, then there's a good chance that our bowlers will go well in trying to defend it. But nevertheless, 120 is still a significant score.
I think that's what he said in the huddle. I think I read this morning, that's exactly what Rohit said in the huddle. If the Indian batting lineup got bowled out for 119, we can bowl their batting lineup out. So and that was spot on. I'm doing the pitch report today, actually. So what was the pitch was fine, was it?
It was perfectly safe. I hadn't seen too much of the other games, or not seen them throughout, but the commentators on the ground felt it was the best pitch that we'd seen at Long Island. It was the same pitch as the South African-Netherlands game, I think, that had been played on it the day before. And it was just a little bit too paced. That was all. You could see that it wasn't quite coming on. When Kohli got out, he almost went too soon. I had to kind of stop almost to play the shot. It was good to see Rishabh Pant get some runs, by the way, back after, I know he played IPL, but good to see him back in international cricket, and played that amazing shot. In the 10th over, he took Haris Rao for 3 consecutive 4s, of which one of them was that amazing shot that he plays when he kind of flips it and then falls over to the offside, which the great Rohan Khanna used to do way back for the West Indies. And what about low-scoring games? I mean, I quite enjoy them just because you see so many run fests. The IPL games where 280 is playing 270. Of course, the crowd love that. I actually quite like the odd tense, low-scoring game. It's probably not what the organisers are wanting for a key event in New York when they're trying to sell the game, but I quite enjoy those games, actually.
I do as well. And the key is, that's why I asked about the pitch. The key is the pitch, not being unsafe. In previous games, it looked like someone was going to get injured, and it looked a bit of a lottery. So I'm pleased that pitch, and they did release the statement, and they've obviously done work. So I do like the variety. In fact, I think it's been a good, you said last podcast was before the Scotland game. If we remember our podcast there and the chat there, it hadn't been a great start to the tournament. There'd been rain around. The pitch in New York was not great, and people were sort of umming and ahhing about the tournament. Was it right to do it in so many venues? Was it right to go to New York? Was it right to do it in rainy season or the start of rainy season? And I think actually in the last few days of the tournament, it has really come to life. Some upsets, Afghanistan really showing what they can do, Uganda having their first win, Scotland and what they are doing. I'm going to forget some sides now. Another big game that we don't talk about as a rivalry, the Bangladesh Sri Lanka game. That's a big rivalry. South Africa nearly against the Netherlands, 20-4. They were nearly triple Dutched or whatever. I mean, we've been double Dutched by the Netherlands. So while we were doing the game in Barbados, Australia, England, that was another cracker. So fair to say it's been a good few days for the tournament, because their big game went off so well yesterday.
I think so. I mean, I think before that India-Pakistan game in Long Island, I think there have been one or two ICC executives very, very nervous indeed. And I think the groundsman, Damien Hoff, would have been very nervous. He's got the thankless task of producing these pitches at such short notice. The trays that, have come over from Adelaide, grasses and soils grown in Florida, then the trays taken up thousands of miles by truck to Long Island. I mean, it's quite a task that they've set him. And, given the amount of effort and money and manpower, they're trying, to take cricket to America, and you applaud the effort. And therefore, that's why they would have been very nervous before yesterday, because that was the big game. That's where all the focus is going to be. I read the New York Times on the Saturday, and cricket rarely gets much of a go in the New York Times. But of course, there's quite a big piece saying this is the event of the weekend, even though the Dodgers and the Yankees, I think, had played the day before in New York. They're saying this is the big event. 400 million people will be watching. Only 125 million watch the Super Bowl. So you knew that all the focus was going to be on this India-Pakistan game. Therefore, it was quite important it went off without a hitch. My understanding is there's a lot of security around as well, and as there always is with these games. And thankfully, that's all gone off without a hitch. So, yeah, we can look forward to the tournament beginning to hot up as we get to the closing stages of the first stage, and then get into the Super 8s. And England, Nas, are going to be, well, pretty nervous. They've gone on to Antigua. I think they flew to Antigua yesterday, and they've got their next game there, and they're going to have to win big, aren't they, against Oman and Namibia?
Yeah, I mean, they had a similar sort of World T20. It didn't go perfectly from last time. If you remember, they lost to Ireland, and they got into this must-win situation, and they went on a run, and they can go on a run, and they're better side when it's just laid out in front of them, I feel, England, because their batters then just have to go for it because it's a net run rate situation. So absolutely, can they beat Oman? Yes. Can they beat Namibia? Yes. Can they beat them well? Yes. Got to be careful, though, as we've seen in this tournament, the other sides will rock up, and if it's a bit dry and a bit grippy, both Namibia and Oman. I did the Oman-Australia game, and they held Australia for 14. They held Australian batting lineup, Oman, for longer than England's bowlers did. England's bowlers held them for 1 over. Oman held them for 14 before Stoinis took it down for 26. So you got to still give the opposition the credit they deserve, but it's there in front of them now. Go and win well, get your net run rate as close as it can be to Scotland, and then that's all you can do. Then you can say, well, we were unlucky, it rained against Scotland and we lost against one of the favourites, but don't be meek against Oman or Namibia, and select well. Just don't. Sometimes they've done that in the past. Don't pick a side for Barbados. Pick a side for Oman, Namibia, and the conditions in Antigua. And the pitch yesterday must have been good, because Scotland absolutely walloped it against Oman. They won with 7 overs to spare, or nearly. So it must be a decent surface there.
So that's my next gig. Oman, Thursday.
What are you doing? What day of the week? I've lost what day of the week is. Monday. We're back into a week now.
Obviously,
what are you doing between Monday and Thursday?
Well, obviously, I'm not considered, unlike you, to be one of the kingpin commentators, because you get flown here, there, and everywhere to do all the games. I just follow England, but it does mean that I've got another day in Barbados, and then I can fly to Antigua for England, Oman Thursday, and then England, Namibia Saturday. Of course, those are my next 2 gigs. So, what are you doing? Why are you in New York? What's coming up?
I've got today, like I said, South Africa, Bangladesh. Your favourites, South Africa. You'd be worried at 20 for 4 the other day. And then I've got tomorrow, Pakistan, Canada. Then I fly Wednesday. Then I do a game Thursday. And then Saturday.
Well, I can't ask you what you'll be doing in New York. Central Park, the Frick Museum, all these fantastic things that you could be doing. You'll be working out in the burbs.
It looked quite nice here, actually. I know I came in late, but Long Island looks nice. So I've done New York. I'm a world traveller. I know New York. I've never done Long Island, so I might go for it. It's an early start today. 10:30, so do the game, and then I might go for a little walk around or a jog. It looks quite nice. A bit of security at the hotel, so maybe the teams are staying here. So I've enjoyed the last few days of the tournament. I think the tournament's exactly what the tournament needed. I've enjoyed USA 2 from 2. Afghanistan look an absolute threat. It's been a good
Brian
week.
Lara was very sweet on Afghanistan. He said they were going to be one of his 4 to get to the semi-finals. He's the only kind of pundit that I saw pick Afghanistan for the
before the tournament. He said
before the tournament, he said Afghanistan are one of my 4. And as I said to you at the start, playing in Trinidad and Guyana, that's a good place for them to play, I reckon.
Right. Enjoy your holiday.
Good luck today and tomorrow. Call it well, and I will see you in Antigua for Thursday's game, England against Oman. And England are going to have to win big. They have to put their foot down. See you then.
Cheers.